Emily and Morgan Paxhia of Poseidon Asset Management. As you will quickly learn, these executives are also siblings. They have quite a story, so do listen in. For you, please bear with us on this one, as we're in a conference room and there is a bit of an echo. Happy to be on the Cannabis Radio Network and Sexpot Comedy Co-op.
All right, so whose idea was this?
Well, we both brought different parts of the idea to the table, I would say. So, I mean, the idea was born a long time ago. I'll let Morgan speak to that about our parents. But about 5 years ago when I landed in California from New York, I started seeing shops everywhere. I started seeing advertisements in the newspaper for things like Cheezel, and I was like, what is this?
What's Cheezel?
Well, Cheezel or cheese or wax are different forms of cannabis. And so they've become concentrates.
Yeah, no, but Cheezel though.
Cheezel's a brand, or
that's
like
what I'm
a
asking.
style, yeah.
Right.
It happens to be one of my favorites, but I think that, you know, right there I saw, oh my gosh, this marketplace is really becoming more and more sophisticated.
Right.
This is 5 years ago, and so called up Morgan, and I was like, Morgan, this is really crazy. Should we be doing something in this? You know, we have that entrepreneurial spirit, I think.
Right. So you got here first.
I got here first.
And
Our sister landed first. She landed in San Francisco.
There's
another one.
There's another one.
Is she older or younger?
She's in between.
In between.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
so you're not that close in age.
Well, we're each about, what is it, like a year and like a couple months apart.
Jordy and I are like 10 months apart.
Okay, so you definitely are the...
Okay.
Yeah.
And so she got here and she's like...
Jordy came out here, and I was coming out here for work a lot.
Oh, you were?
And I was, and
well,
so
what were you doing?
I was doing research and consulting.
Oh, that makes sense. Based on what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I came out here. It does. It makes a lot of sense,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
And I saw our sister was kind of living the dream in California.
What was she doing?
She is a education person.
Still?
Yes.
So she teaches people, is what she does?
She teaches children, and she educates adults on how to better teach children.
Oh, wow. Oh, so she's not only giving back to the kids, she's also giving back to the adults that are teaching the kids. This is a terrible person. Why?
You can just tell the family has...
It's just, what happened to her that she's just so horrible? She's such a taker, I think.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So that's good. So she's doing that.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's great out here no matter what.
Yeah.
And you get out here with your background, and then you say to Morgan, oh my God, there's cheese and Cheezel specifically.
Well, so as a researcher,
Right.
I was like, there's opportunity space here.
Right,
That's
right.
what we always say, there's opportunity space. So
Got
then I called up Morgan, and Morgan, who's a super smart person, as you can tell, had some thoughts on this.
I did, yeah.
I'll let you speak to it.
Yeah, no, it was interesting, you know, when Emily was like, we need to start a business together. And,
Right.
and that was like the first time the conversation of like even starting a business, let alone where or what we would be doing. And she's like, and it should be cannabis. So it was really, you know, and that's what started the whole process. And so we started looking at the industry and you know, 5 years ago is, you know, we always relate this industry to dog years. So 5 years ago feels like forever ago.
Oh my God. That's,
yeah.
35 years ago.
Yeah. That's
doing the math.
right.
5 stomach
I'll check.
lines.
Yeah, that's right. That's
True
right.
dog years.
Right.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yes, it's been a long time. A lot of gray hairs since then.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Well, I can't see them. You had never worked together before.
We hadn't, no. But you know, we'd always over like so many
Emily
years.
disagrees. I'm just looking at both faces.
Oh yeah, taught sailing together way back in the day.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, there was a way you, in all seriousness,
Yeah.
you had worked, you know, completed goals together.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, and actually further down that rabbit hole for a second, sailing together. I mean, you know, growing up, our parents were big sailors, and so we would sail with our parents, and you know, it's very much a team sport. So we, you know, working together in that regard as well, in addition to teaching.
Yeah, and a sailboat is a serious boiler room. If you're not going to work well together, you'll find out real quick, and it goes
Because you have to
terribly
work
wrong.
so collaboratively.
Yeah, and you have to remain calm because things go wrong on boats when it's really windy or big wave conditions, or even when there's no wind, people get cranky. So it's good to...
Yeah, and personalities on boats can get way out of whack.
Yeah.
You know, you could be the calmest person on land, you step foot on a boat, and all of a sudden people have like crazy tempers. And so there's just like a limitless amount of variables with wind and water. I mean, it's just, so you just have to be so ready to adapt and change to the conditions.
I'm not a sailor, and you just talking about sailing is making me anxious. So I think, based just on that level, I can see what you're saying about how people kind of change maybe when they get out to the sea. The picture that I saw of your parents was on the sailboat.
That's
right.
So I want to take this tangent here. We've already established that your sister is a horrible person.
Right.
Let's talk about the parents. Obviously, you know them from birth.
Yes.
But take us through the relationship of, is it just the 3 kids? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what kind of parents were these when you guys were little kids?
Well, you know, for the longest time we were living in the East Coast, kind of hedged away from saying the term hippie, but I'm proud to say it. I mean, they were hippies.
Okay.
And
Where on the East Coast?
So originally from upstate New York. We grew up near Buffalo.
I mean, that's truly, if you're gonna be a hippie, that's where you would be a hippie, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's you're close to Woodstock.
Yeah,
Okay.
and our dad actually went to Woodstock.
There you go.
Yeah, so we actually tried to find. There's a really cool picture of him sitting on the fence at Woodstock. Which,
He's in the movie.
yeah, that's right. He's in the movie too.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Where along the way there? Because I'm familiar with it, and people can then go to whatever and find it.
Is it like a quarter of the way? I'd have to go back. It's been so long since I've seen it, but
I know it's when Jimi Hendrix is playing the Star
Right.
Spangled Banner.
Okay,
and they
then
pan
that's at
out
the
to
very end.
That's the end. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
There are a
You
couple
know
of
better than
clips,
I
I
do.
think, but that's where he's sitting. He was sitting up on a wall, and they were dropping rations of cookies
Yeah.
because it rained and everybody lost their supplies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the people standing right by the wall couldn't get the cookies, so
Right.
he was grabbing the cookies and passing them down to the people by the wall.
These are actual cookies. These are not Girl Scout cookies. These are.
These are
right?
these are actual cookies.
Actual-
To my knowledge, they were not laced.
as everything else was.
Augmented. Yeah.
Right.
But round disc-like
Yes,
food
like
items.
snacky
Yeah.
cookies.
All right.
Yeah.
So he's in that movie.
Yeah.
You guys grow up in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And so they're hippies like, your name is just Emily and your name is just Morgan. You're not
Yeah.
Moon Unit. You're not Dweezil. So not that Frank was a hippie, but you know, you seem pretty normal to me. You've got a button-down shirt on. You look very nice.
Oh, thanks.
How were they actually hippies?
Well, you know, I guess outside of just like using the Woodstock tangent or analogy, but you know, they were just very much their own way, and you know, our mom went down the path of, she was very much into like holistic living, and very much of, she was actually a dietitian, as like so much professing of, you know, being aware of what you're ingesting and who you are. And our father was could not work for anybody. There's not a chance. And so he very quickly
You both have
went
the
down his
same
own
look
path.
on your face.
Yeah.
By the way. Why do you say that?
Strong personality.
strong personality.
Oh yeah, type A.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How did your mother and he get along then? She seems to be.
She was
with,
lovely.
yeah, with the dietitian thing, I'm here to help. That's maybe the sister angle type thing. Maybe there's a strain there to use.
Strain,
the
nice,
hormones.
yeah, nice.
Right.
I mean, just also to add on to that, we were vegetarian until we like went to the neighbor's house and had bologna when we were older kids. So we had that whole thing going on, and we were composting in the early '80s.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that was pretty.
true.
That's pretty forward. We were recycling. Like we got in the car and drove to recycling places. So it was like pretty
Yeah.
hippie stuff. And we also
there
shop-
weren't a ton of dietitians
No.
then either.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. She
Yeah.
did a ton of work in like schools and trying to improve like cafeteria foods and things, like, you know, just trying to educate kids about healthy eating. Yeah, because like, you know, as a cafeteria as a kid, it was like, what, it was like a piece of pizza and a Coke.
Yeah.
Like the worst things you can give kids, right? Like just.
Sure. Well, now we know.
And
Yeah,
she
now-
was like,
yeah.
ketchup's not a vegetable. But I remember too, here's another early memory of mom. Woody Harrelson
Oh, wow.
talking about hemp
Yeah.
in the 80s. And I remember we were like watching, it was on PBS, and he was talking about, because that's pretty much all we had at that point. And he said, you know, he was professing the need for industrial hemp back then.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom was like, what are these people afraid of? He's going to eat his jeans?
Yeah.
And because there's
Smoke his jeans, yeah.
Smoke his jeans or something.
That's such a mom thing to say.
Yeah. She was like.
But she was talking about hemp.
Yeah, she was on board for hemp, and she
Right.
was like, she understood the misunderstanding that people have that you get high from hemp because you don't.
Right.
So
And
anyway.
she also was familiar with being a dietitian. She understood what
Yeah.
things
Absolutely.
do. All right, so I mean, to clumsily make our way in here, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our father is an entrepreneur, so he started remodeling cars as a way, like his first business venture, and because he was just very much working with his hands kind of thing. So he was like painting cars, doing full restoration of them, and because he was very strong-minded and maybe stubborn at times, he didn't always believe in the proper respiration devices. Maybe that they didn't even really exist. I mean, they still don't, but
Right.
that kind of exposure that he probably had, and then also that ventured into or funded the venture of the family business, which was buying real estate and renting it out. And a lot of homes in the Buffalo area had asbestos in them, all kinds of crazy chemicals, and Buffalo has just a bad history too with Superfund sites, and so who knows what kind of really bad stuff that they were exposed to over time. And he ultimately came down with cancer. Who knows when he got it, because again, being a strong-willed kind of stubborn individual, he wasn't the best at going to the doctor and
Right.
discovering if there were problems.
Plus, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's definitely that like generational mentality too. A lot of people
Yeah.
just have the "I'm fine" mentality.
Right.
So later on, obviously things had gotten so bad that they found out just by the fact that he had gotten so sick, and then started going down the route of doctors, chemotherapy,
Experimental chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Now, is he doing both at the same time, type of thing?
Yeah.
But along with that strong will, he was just like, whatever it takes. Like, I will do
He
anything.
really didn't want to
Rid
go.
me of whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So,
Super fighter.
Right.
yeah.
2 years fought. And it was
Yeah.
a very grim prognosis at first, but he fought it through the whole thing.
And did he have a sense, or did you have a sense of, obviously not much worked, but in the moment, whether the chemo or the alternative kind of homeopathy type stuff, did you see a difference between the two results, just to talk medicine?
Oh, I mean, so there wasn't really much homeopathy going on. It was just more mom was trying to feed him healthy foods and all of that type of thing. But I mean, he went right into this crazy experimental chemo treatment. I don't know if you could notice anything aside from that. Those just ravaged the body, and then they gave him like a whole litany of other things to try to manage the side effects of it. And I
Right.
think each thing has its own side effect, or
Yeah.
10.
Right.
So, I mean, who knows? I feel like it was really hard to tell what was happening at that point.
Yeah, and sadly, because Buffalo does have such a high cancer rates, like the Roswell Cancer Institute is a very well known, and so they were kind of on the leading edge. But I feel like it was just still so early, yeah. So they were like just bombarding because he was so open to trying things. And
Well, you say it was so early, but when was this? What year-ish? You said it was over a 2-year
94.
period. 94?
Yeah.
So my mother passed away when I was 30, so that's 10 years ago.
Okay.
So that's about 10 years later, 9 years later.
Yep.
They were still just throwing stuff at her. I mean, for 3 years she was sick, and just, okay, we'll do chemo, and then here's a bunch of stuff. Oh, that doesn't work for you? And you've been taking it for 6 months? We'll stop that then.
Right.
Right.
Well, then it's not working, so we'll stop.
Yeah. After we pumped it into you for 6 months. Drugs getting pulled out of, circulation that she had been on.
Yeah.
So insane.
It is insane.
It's insane.
The whole thing is insane. I mean, it's just crazy too, because like you can't just bombard someone with so much of one drug and then all of a sudden just stop.
Yeah.
Because your body, like, you just can't do that to your body.
Right.
It's like, so.
Yeah.
What's strange to me is that it seems like they don't know that.
The relationship to pharmaceutical drugs in this country is insane.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. And further to that, I do think that, I'm not a huge fan of the doctor that we have for my mother based on the results, which,
Sorry.
no, but I say that to
I get it,
look
yeah.
for a laugh. If anybody's going to get it, it's you.
You're right.
We can laugh.
Exactly, but because there is a disconnect between what you're doing for a living and what you're doing for a living.
Right.
So yes, okay, fine. I get it. There's a lot of these patients, but you choose not to talk about, hey, maybe choose a no-salt diet. You don't talk about that because that's for other people to talk about. But that's part of what you do is the thing. What did your mom have to say about obviously your mom was on top of that as far as diet, because that's huge.
Yeah.
And then what happened with her?
Well, that one's kind of a gray, so that's a real weird story.
Yeah. Well, no, it's,
So we were away at college, and that went a lot quicker because she got sick. It was a lump misdiagnosis, and she hid it from us because of the pain that we had gone through.
How many years prior?
5 years.
Okay.
So this is 2001, September 11th, this just happened. And we come home for Thanksgiving and our mom's like 90 pounds. And so anyway.
She didn't say anything to you guys?
no.
It
was like,
I think she was emotionally just.
yeah. And she was in Cleveland. So like we went home to Buffalo.
At Cleveland Clinic or?
Well, we went home and then we saw her and then she went to, no.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It was after
She married a
that.
guy that was a Christian Scientist.
Okay.
So the plot thickens.
Yeah.
So is that part of the treatment?
There's no treatment with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is involved. I was going to say, if that's a separate story, that's a separate, but
Yeah.
it's not a separate story.
No, that's the big part of it. So anyway, that was like really probably the most painful kind of crescendo and ending of that all. It was just.
And then how long was she sick? Not long.
As far as we know, it was like, when we knew it was seriously like 20 days.
Yeah.
After Thanksgiving when you guys got home,
Yeah,
it
and
was less
she
than a month.
passed away
Yeah.
December 13th.
Yep. Yeah, so we like pretty much were like, went back to school, went back to college, and it was like, you just turned right back around and came home.
Yeah.
That was it. It was over. So, it's so like, obviously you can always reflect on things and think about it. And, I was a freshman that fall when September 11th happened and when she passed. But so I was around senior year and I noticed she was getting really thin, but I didn't know if she was like, just being like overly conscious or self-conscious or something about like, because she was running a lot, she was exercising, she was
So healthy.
She's very healthy, yeah, but she was just getting thin. And I just thought because she was exercising so much, not that there was probably more going on.
Got it. And nobody thought maybe eating disorder at all, or
No.
just to what's going on here?
Yeah.
Just maybe she's getting in shape and
Right.
whatever.
She was always really thin anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So I
She
just
was,
thought she
yeah.
was kind of like, sometimes when thin women age, they just get kind of thinner,
Right.
because
Yep.
it's part of like muscle atrophy or whatever. And she wasn't getting that much older. She was only 57, but
And then she passed the tipping point.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, that's when she came. Yeah, because she was about my height. She's a tall lady, but then. Yeah, when we came home, we were like, "Oh, something's wrong."
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really sad scenario, and I think it's just a case in point of like the emotional damage that cancer can do to a family. And I don't think she had it in her to fight again and go through that.
Right.
Because she saw it, and we know this. She said, "We saw what chemo did to Dad. This is not gonna."
So I'm not even going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even talk about it with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to do the communication thing,
Yeah.
which in itself is impossible.
It's an impossible dialogue.
Because within the family, there's things that you say, and there's things that you don't say. There's words that you don't use ever.
Yeah.
And then there's the extended, close friends, and then other friends, and then just people. The people that know, they don't know what to say to you. They don't know what to do. And I'm sure she was dealing with some of that. Along with, not wanting to kind of burden you guys if we're speaking mother speak.
Yeah.
Right?
It's absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's what and you see it like now, like you said, like people can relate only that have gone through it. And like you can see so many other families since then that have lost parents and things like that. And it's always, they feel like they're always trying to protect their kids by not sharing that information.
Right.
And it always comes as a regret. I've never met anyone that's been like, I'm so thankful that
Nobody
I didn't know
told
this
me.
was happening.
Yeah, she hid it from us, and we're so much better off.
Yes,
Right.
because we didn't notice that she died.
Yeah, exactly.
So sad. But but I think, the real story for us with where cannabis enters into this whole thing is back with Dad and the hospice nurses, which hospice is the greatest organization in the world. I mean, in our failing health system, hospice is a beacon.
Well,
without
because
question.
they deal with the patients and care for the patients.
Right. The patients are first.
Yeah.
Patients
not
are,
everything else
Exactly.
is first. So, and they're like, you're a human being. This is how you need to be cared for as a human
Indeed.
being. Did you work with hospice? at
No,
any point?
but I mean, just even the nurses.
Yes, the nurses.
yeah, exactly.
Always the nurses.
So getting to your dad, cannabis, hospice, it's how did that?
Oh, right. So the nurses. So again, like because of patient's number one, and everything else goes out the window. So 96 was the year he passed. That was the year California passed medical, right? So not in upstate New York. Definitely not at all. But they knew that our father had a relationship to cannabis previously, and
It's in the movie.
it's in the movie. There's proof. And
When he grew his own.
he grew his own.
Yeah.
He was a farmer
Before
as
us.
well.
So he truly had a
yeah.
relationship. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That was before us.
Yeah, I got
And
you.
it was purely because he was a connoisseur.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wanted the best.
He did. And so the nurses offered it as this late stage life, just trying to find some comfort. Not that they were trying to profess any like last minute savior here of like medical benefits, which, hopefully we're starting to learn more about those things. But just from the simple fact that give this guy what he wants.
Pain management.
Pain management.
Yep.
But he wouldn't do it. He refused because it was illegal in New York.
That guy, Woodstock guy, refuses. The guy grow your own refuses. How does that add up?
Because of the stigma of the family, he didn't want to put his family at risk. He was once he became a family
These
man,
terrible
like the
parents
hippie.
that you have. I mean, geez.
Yeah,
A lot of protecting going on.
Yes.
My God.
yeah,
I think too, like there is that fear that after you're gone, what is the repercussions that are left?
The legacy.
And, so if he had done that, and we're from a small town, what's the dialogue and what's the fallout of that?
right,
You know,
yeah.
so I think that's part of it.
I had put Woodstock behind me. I have my kids. I have my family. This is me.
Yeah.
This is 2.0 me.
that's right.
So
This is
wow.
John the father.
Yeah.
John the Father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
Cousin
That's what I
of John the Baptist.
Right.
So I don't know why. So then getting back to your story, you had gone through this ridiculousness.
Yes.
And you get to the Bay Area. Where are you when she gets to the Bay Area?
I think I had made it to Rhode Island at that point. I lived around the New England area from between New York and Boston and Rhode Island. I lived in Rhode Island though for 10 years. So that's where I was. And so very much not an industry, even though Rhode Island has some of the highest consumption of cannabis per capita than any other state, but it's also because it's a very small state, but it's a very, very active consumer base there.
There are active cannabis cultures all over.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
It's a very highly valued cash crop. But so Emily called me up and she's like, this is real. This is moving in the right direction. And there's an opportunity here. So we really spent a good amount of time canvassing the landscape and where do we fit? Where do we have the most impact to really move this industry in the direction that we think is, legitimate, responsible? Because, when you're changing laws, we knew we had to be a part of moving in the right direction because we have one chance really to get this right.
Yep.
And there's been so many people before us that have fought to get it there. And so what was it going to be? And so we had canvassed the landscape looking at different areas of, whether it was going to be a product-based company, a service-based company, because, it still is, today it's still so wide open. It's still a very fragmented industry.
Especially in California.
Yeah. And so we just, after going through many different products that are now starting to come to the market, which is pretty cool, it wasn't the right skill set, because we kept being like, well, I don't know how to do that, or I don't, it's like we kept having these gaps, and I kept coming back to what my background is in investing.
Okay.
And looking at this.
So that's the 1-2 punch right there. So that's perfect. You guys are perfect together.
Thank you.
Genetically speaking, it's working out.
Yeah, so just like seeing that gap there, that it was an undercapitalized industry and people looking to get into the industry were not going to have the time, the energy to do the due diligence, to make the investments in a timely enough fashion. So there was just too much risk. So the risk was not commensurate for capital to really flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way to solve that, we believe, was building out a portfolio
Mm-hmm.
and really taking a very broad approach and investing in a lot of different areas of the industry, knowing that some areas were going to thrive, some were not. You know, there's just the undeniable market forces that just not everything's going to be $1 billion company. We know that.
Right.
As much as we hope our portfolio has many successful exits in there,
Right.
but anyway, so that was really the general aha moment when we noticed that it didn't exist.
Okay.
And that was all you, Morgan.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations. It was all you. Big fan of Poseidon, mythologically speaking. Love the trident. Why did we choose that?
It definitely ties in with our sailing background. We really feel that the elements of water and sailing and all of those components together are very strongly paralleled to what happens in business. And I think we were looking for something that tracked to that. And our last name is a Greek Sicilian name. So I think we thought that it'd be fun to, if as we're building it out, that each fund would have a Greek god association with it. Yeah.
That's such a
God
good
or a
idea.
goddess, yeah.
Paxhia, does that mean anything specifically, or?
Peace.
Oh, really? Oh, you-
Sort
That's
of.
part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also, when you break it into its components, it actually is derived from the island of Paxos, which is an island off the coast of Greece. So, Ia meaning from the island of Pax. So Paxos, really. But
Okay.
yeah, so it's a pretty cool and peace too. So there's a pretty cool background in the name there, and it carried through even though the family went to Sicily and lived in Sicily for a good bit of time before coming to the United States, ultimately to Rochester, New York.
There you go. So you've been to Nick Tahoe's, you've had the garbage plates.
Yes, back in a former life.
Garbage plates.
It's literally called garbage plate.
Yeah.
It's a garbage plate and you get it.
Looks
you
like
buy it to eat.
Garbage.
Yes.
You want to eat the garbage plate.
Yes.
And it does, I mean,
feel like garbage.
yes. The next, I mean, it's built for young people, let's be honest.
Yes.
And when you are inebriated, let's say, it's perfect. But that next day, it's not the hangover. I mean, it's the garbage plate hangover.
This definitely has nothing to do with alcohol. Purely the garbage.
It's the garbage plate. I mean, what? Hot dogs, beans?
Oh God, I know. I can't even think about it anymore. It's like-
You both physically
Northern
can't talk
California
about
is
that.
yeah.
You can't even imagine it. Exactly.
No.
Yeah. The garbage plate doesn't understand what an avocado is.
No,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
has never
So where are we now? We've got this whole thing. We've got the fund, and we get going, and there's the initial stuff. But here we are in 2015. It's just barely. We're in December. When you guys look at 2016, what I would love to hear are sectors of interest, and let's do that first.
Okay. So far we've covered a lot of different areas of the industry, from real estate, consulting, all kinds of technology. I mean, technology in itself is such a huge category that, we're starting to isolate more and more different areas. Marketplaces is a very exciting area. Data is a very exciting area. And then there's hardware components to the industry that we really think are pretty interesting. And hardware is one of the hardest areas in general investing, especially early stage. And it's very true in the cannabis industry, but there's tremendous opportunity there because so many people are, kind of hesitant in there. But,
But there's your plant touching, because almost everything else that you mentioned is not plant touching, right? So when you get into hardware, there's where you start to
The different hardware we've done is all still considered ancillary because whether it's alternative ingestion from like vaporizing technology to growing efficiency technologies, there's some hardware elements there, but they're still that one step removed. So, I think 2016, one of the huge themes, and I don't want to steal your thunder because this is really your baby.
Go for it.
Okay. Is
And then you'll add color if
Baby.
you don't
Yeah,
mind.
sure.
yeah. Well, because Emily identified this, and this is kind of
This is 100% her.
No.
well, this area to invest in. Emily was really good with data. She was picking up on that way before
Data,
everyone
yeah.
was. But
2014, we were calling that one.
yeah, but then we ultimately found the Rockstar team to take that investment. But 2016, we think is going to be a pivotal year for hemp, specifically industrial hemp cultivation, United States. Finally seeing for the first time, really bringing that crop back in a meaningful way here. And the end uses are somewhere in the tune of 25,000 end uses. So trying to, isolate what those end uses are is amazing to think of that, there's just so many places that it can go. But now that we're able to start cultivating it here, mostly in like R&D kind of pilot programs, but it's starting to get to larger scale. And the other thing that's really interesting about it is once it's here grown and then cultivated and then processed, the scalability is so much faster because, right now in cannabis, it's so state specific.
Yep.
So it's very hard. It has to be.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very hard for brands to get out of that state. People keep trying to do it. Ultimately, some will be successful, but it's more expensive and more time consuming than anyone has anticipated it would be. So where we don't see so many of those barriers with hemp.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Because most people really aren't taking it seriously yet, except we are.
You said you found that Rockstar team, and without asking you, unless you want to tell us, what makes a Rockstar team for you?
You know what? It's always for us, investing is always about the people. We do look for ideas as well, but you really have to believe in the team because it's hard. This business is hard, and you have to have a strong core team with good leaders in order to get through it. So
Who are relentless?
who are relentless. Yes, you have to. You have to be somebody who likes a little bit. You have to be a glutton for punishment a bit to do this. So,
I just got hit in the face again.
thank you. Thanks for that. I'll come back for more. So it's good, but I think that's one of our key things. With this particular team, they're actually, I think, one of the first success stories of an actual successful exit from a company that they founded within the cannabis industry.
Who's this?
This is the guys at Headset.
Okay.
So they founded Leafly, and so then it was, it became a big part of Privateer, and then they've moved on to continue to grow their careers.
Right.
And I think it's really good to acknowledge, some people are really founders of companies, and some like to stay to see it through for a really long time, but some have that voracious desire to continue to start things. And that's a good thing to identify in your founders, is where they start things and where they're ready to pass the baton. But
I remember when everyone kind of left Leafly. I remember that. That happened.
That did.
and it will happen with other companies.
Yep.
Is that,
as
I
we
mean,
go
do you
forward.
guys, that's a good question, and maybe you don't want to answer it, but do you see specific pieces of teams within other organizations? Is that how you find who might be right, or do you wait for them to have the product? And when you say it's
coaching
team-based or
people?
person-based, how much so?
Well, the industry's so young from a truly an investable standpoint, and truly just as an industry in itself. So, we really believe it's a people industry right now. I mean, it's really hard to say, there's truly defined businesses. There's very few actual brands, you know what I mean? So it's really the people still, and anyone that tries to have like a meaningful amount of revenue to show from the past, I mean, there's just very few.
Right.
So we're all in really in that startup mode.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have to put that.
The only people
emphasis
that
on
have been doing it for 20 years are the cultivators in, the Emerald Triangle.
Yeah.
We're not investing in those people currently.
No,
Currently.
not yet.
And
They're
we,
not-
I mean you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like that's happening, and it'll happen at other companies too. And
Yeah.
I think we'll see some migration around the space of people.
Indeed.
You were just over there, now you're over here, and
Yeah.
that's cool.
Oh, isn't that him from that?
Yes,
Burr-
exactly.
Burr from the other?
So but so yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have one question before the 3 final questions.
Okay.
The last question here is, where do you see Poseidon this time next year, end of 2016, as you go into 2017, if you can even think that far?
I think we're going to see that several of our companies have gone through successful Series A raises, and we're really excited about that because we think that there's a lot of cross synergies within the portfolio of things that they can do for each other to lift each other up.
Cross-pollination.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll have seen some of that going on, and then hence we'll see a maturation of the industry where we're starting to see business metrics that other industries have available to them. We'll start to see, more efficient wholesale B2B transferring of product, which will make the pricing more efficient. It'll make operations more efficient. Hopefully we will see some things.
You mentioned exchanges before, so yeah.
Yeah. And so hopefully also 2016, we're going to see an amazing election occur.
Yeah.
And
it's only 40% of the electorate that's voting on legalized cannabis, so not too much at stake.
Yeah, just a slice.
Yeah.
I mean, half the legal market really in California here. So I think that there's a lot at stake. So we're hoping to see some really strong and clearly defined regulations that will help to foster businesses within the industry and not just make them easy prey to, monopolies or companies coming in from outside.
Yeah, sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of likes to talk about that. Oh, well, big pharma and, pick your industries, tobacco, whatever. They're all going to come in and it's going to die. It's all going to die. Right? Right, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for stepping over you.
No.
What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think there will be some of that will happen.
Sure.
Yeah. And that'll be like the Budweiserification of cannabis a little bit.
And then what remains?
And then we'll have some awesome craft businesses. I mean, to liken it to the beer industry, Ballast Point, $6 billion they just got acquired for? And awesome. I hope that beer stays good, by the way. But
I'm so glad to hear you say that because this is my opinion. So I'm happy to hear that schooled and educated and people that practice finance agree.
It is interesting because people, 5 years ago, for sure, I would have thought that the market would have that huge, there's definitely going to be that really low cost. I think that'll still exist, but people as a whole seem to be more interested in what they're eating, want to be more educated about their diets. Maybe it's just California really rubbing off on me, but it seems like that's becoming so much more, the Whole Foods model, right? Like, trying to have and I don't mean to say that they're great, but just
the farm to table concept.
The farm to table,
also works with cannabis.
Yeah, exactly. There's a company here in California that does exactly that. So, so I still think there will be the low cost producer. I don't think there's any way around that.
Sure.
There's just people that want to be able to go to their corner store and pick up a pre-roll for $1.
Yes.
And they don't care what's in it. But then there's also the others that will have a more premium experience. So 2016, with that election, I think that's going to bring just a tremendous amount of attention to the industry. And if the laws go the way we hope they're going and the way they seem to be moving, that's going to change the capital landscape tremendously. So right now it's an undercapitalized industry. I think it'll become, it's going to change that. And even though the laws won't go into effect right away, the capital will start moving first. So big tobacco, big pharma, they're still probably a couple years out, but the big VCs, the funds are going to come running in as soon as they have that green light. So that'll be interesting to see how they stack up with big tobacco and big pharma, because I don't think they have generally a great taste in their mouth for them either. So, they're all of a sudden potentially going to be fighting the same fight with us to keep an industry as it's, as authentic as it is. So.
Because there's value in brand.
There's always value in brand, yeah.
So here we go. On the way out, what has most surprised you in cannabis?
It's a great question. I guess the how quickly perceptions seem to progress in pockets, and I think, Colorado's done a good job of leading the movement of perception change, but then there's areas that have surprised me that haven't. For example, Massachusetts has had a medical market legalized now, and like barely anything's happening there. And it's really frustrating because the patients suffer as the ultimate loss to that. But, you know, so these states that have put these programs in place and it's not happening. Like New York is, you know, is a terrible state as well. Illinois, terrible. You know, it's like these places that, so it's like, what were they even doing? And
why did you even do this?
Yeah, your constituents don't even seem to support. I mean, we read like the Boston Globe, and you know, it's just amazing to see the ridiculous statements that are still coming out.
Still out, yeah.
So I guess that's been a bit of a surprise. Is just the, you know, how people really have not embraced what's happening.
Yeah, and not necessarily in politically conservative places.
Right.
What has most surprised you in life?
In life?
Indeed. Now you get to answer this. You know, you're young, right? But you still get to answer this because, as we've discussed, we've been through a bit of life.
Yes.
You know what? I think I'll say this, and I don't know if it surprised me, but it continues to amaze me, is that the attitude and intention that you bring to a project really dictates how it's going to go. And while I feel like we've faced an amazing amount of adversity in trying to take this industry on the way that we're doing it, I think that because we have really strong intentions for what we want to do, and because we try to constantly stay positive and see it as that we're lifting other companies up and lifting other people up along with us, including the patients and the environment in terms of the efficiencies and all the things that we're doing, I think that it still amazes me that when you are really focused and your intention is really strong, that it can really pay off and you can see it. It's tangible. So I think that's something that amazes me, not necessarily surprises me. Is that okay?
And it's okay for you to be amazed. And I feel like you were appropriately amazed. And I feel like you also don't need my opinion on that.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted a surprise, like, I guess
no, it was an amazing answer.
Okay.
I guess. So finally, for fun, on the soundtrack of Morgan's life, on the soundtrack of Emily's life, please, each of you choose a track that must be there. One song that goes along with you know, what's going on.
Well, I might steal from Dire Straits' "Walk of Life."
Oh, that's a good one.
Look at that.
Yeah, that was a family
Really good one.
song. That was one of our dad's favorites. He actually would always play it on the boat if there was no wind. It was his way to make the appease the wind gods.
Wow.
So very, very nostalgic song for us.
Mark Knopfler abides.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Can I pick two?
Sure.
Okay. First one, just because I love it so much, is David Bowie's Queen Bitch.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's got a great intro.
Absolutely. And it's got backbone as well.
And I think as a female in business, sometimes it's like an anthem for sure.
Although I don't accept that. That's a whole different conversation, by the way.
Oh.
The whole male, female, bitch, you know, that whole conversation about the words that we use and the attitudes that we have.
Yes.
You know, what's the difference?
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyway, go on.
I think bitch is okay when it's prefaced by queen.
Sure.
So that's okay.
Absolutely. And specifically when the protagonist is using it.
And
I was going to say, so like King Dick is okay?
yeah, exactly. King Dick, that's right. And then I would say Cat Stevens, The Wind.
Well, sure.
There we go.
There you go. You ended on a thing I can't. Thank you so much.
You can't make fun of that one?
No, I can, and then you choked me up a little bit because that's the perfect way to end. So, Emily and Morgan, thank you so much for the conversation, for what you're doing for the industry. Keep going.
Thank you. You too. You're making great content.
There's Emily and Morgan Paxhia. Really appreciated sitting down with them and kind of realizing that unlikely bond, some might call it unfortunate, but if you go ahead and put the silver lining on it, it's good to have people that understand. So extremely happy to be on Cannabis Radio and the Sexpot Comedy Co-op.